Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is Monday, June 15th of 2026, and we'll start with the weather as we always do. This reading is exclusively for people who are blind or print disabled. Today, across the Cape and Islands, clouds yield to sun this morning into the afternoon with a high of 80 expected. Tonight, partly cloudy, a low of 56 in the overnight. Tomorrow, Tuesday, less humid, more sunshine than clouds, high of 73, a low of 60, beautiful day. And on Wednesday, pleasant with some sun, same thing, high of 73, low of 62 in the overnight. On Thursday, it gets breezy. We have some humidity with a couple of showers expected, a high of 75, a low of 65. And on Friday, sunny and less humid, probably the best day of the week with a high of 81 and a low of 62, sunny all day, no rain expected. The sun will rise at 5:06 a.m. today. It'll set at 8:17 p.m. We'll have 15 hours and 11 minutes of daylight. The moon will rise at 5:06 a.m. and set at 9:30 p.m. Now, heading to the front of the paper where they used to keep the lottery results, but the Cape Cod Times goes to press too early to give you those results, so we go to masslottery.com to give them to you because if you ask for them, you certainly deserve the latest results. And with the results for the numbers game of Sunday, June 14th of 2026 in the midday, the numbers were 7, 4, 8, 9. Again, yesterday's midday winning numbers in the numbers game, 7, 4, 8, 9. In the evening winning numbers, 8, 6, 5, 9. Again, last night's winning numbers for the numbers game, 8, 6, 5, 9. For Mass Cash, which was drawn yesterday, Sunday, June 14th, the midday winning numbers were 2, 7, 12, 28, and 30. Again, 2, 7, 12, 28, and 30. The evening winning numbers for last night were 1, 2, 7, 23, and 30. Again, 1, 2, 7, 23, and 30. Good luck to all who play. Remember us if you win. And now's a good time to remind you that if you miss any of the information that we share in our readings, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org. It's a fully disability-compliant website. Click on the Listen tab, and under All Reads to the Blind, we have 150 chronologically maintained files with the most recent at the top. So you'll be able to catch up on anything that you might have missed. We also keep a wide variety of periodicals and literature up there, as well as the Ledger Actors Workshop radio plays and the supermarket shopping circulars so you know what's on sale at the grocery store. All of that is free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. Heading back to the front page, the headline above the fold, if there was such a thing in a digital newspaper, Right whale seen in Cape Cod Bay is now entangled in Canada waters, by Rachel Devaney. An entangled North Atlantic right whale was spotted in Canada earlier this week and is thought to be the unnamed 5-year-old great-grandson of well-known species matriarch Wart. He was last seen in Cape Cod Bay without entangling gear on April 21st. On June 8th, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada spotted the whale in the Gulf of St. Lawrence near Shippagan, New Brunswick, according to a press statement. The whale was seen with fishing rope caught in its mouth and gear trailing behind its body. Anderson Cabot Center for Ocean Life at the New England Aquarium confirmed the identification of the whale as 5192, according to the statement. Scientists said that the whale's behavior, the wounds, and the rope rubbing marks indicate a recent entanglement. It's always disheartening to hear the news of another entangled right whale. Catalog number 5192 is no different, said Heather Pettis, a New England Aquarium senior scientist, in the statement. We're hopeful that rescue teams will be able to safely disentangle him so that the impacts of the event are minimized. According to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, attempts to find the whale are ongoing. Once the whale is found, responders hope to attach a satellite tag to the entangling fishing gear to track the whale and potentially mount a disentanglement response depending on weather and ocean conditions, according to the release. Catalog number 5192 is the calf of millipede, known to scientists as number 3520, and millipede's mother is Wart, a well-known right whale with a large family tree, according to the press release. Wart was last seen in 2014, may not be alive anymore. This is the fourth time number 5192 has been entangled, but it's the first time he's also been trapped in attached fishing gear, said the release. 5 other right whales have been documented with entanglement injuries in 2026. Right whales are one of the most endangered large whale species in the world, with an estimated population of about 380 and only 72 reproductive females, according to the press release. Entanglements and Fezzle strikes are the leading causes of death and injury for right whales, according to the press statement, although serious injuries and deaths of right whales caused by entanglements are preventable. Over time, scientists say the broad-scale adoption of ropeless or on-demand gear and weaker ropes could help the situation. More than 86% of right whales have been entangled at least once, and like number 5192, more than 60% have experienced multiple entanglements throughout their lives, said Pettis. There is no doubt that entanglements remain a persistent threat to this critically endangered species. The next headline in today's Cape Cod Times: Cape Cod siblings stirred a revolution. Their voices and writings helped ignite America's fight for independence, by Barbara Clark as a special to the Cape Cod Times. Among well-known local names connected with the American Revolution, the Otis family holds a central place in Cape Cod's history. Colonel James Otis Sr. settled in West Parish of Barnstable in the 1720s. His family of 13 children included James Otis Jr., who lived from 1725 to 1783, and Mercy Otis Warren, who lived from 1728 to 1814, whose notable political accomplishments made a significant contribution during the Revolutionary War period. I think it's fair to say that James and Mercy were among the earliest and most ardent believers in the idea of republicanism and the Enlightenment principle of individual rights in the American colonies, said Jeffrey Hacker, author of Minds and Hearts, a 2021 biography of the well-known brother and sister. In the early 1760s, along with many colonists, James Jr. and Mercy began to champion fundamental citizens' rights, protesting the Crown's endangerment of colonists' personal freedoms through levying burdensome taxes and executing warrantless search and seizure operations in Massachusetts homes and places of business. Mercy's role as a freedom trailblazer has been enshrined in the Mercy Otis Warren Cape Cod Woman of the Year award that's given annually. On June 10th, Shireen Davis of Chatham was named the recipient for 2026. The award is supported by Cape Cod 5 Cents Savings Bank and Barnstable County. A 13th generation Cape Codder, Davis was recognized for her leadership in public service, sustainable fisheries, and environmental advocacy. In 1761, testifying at Boston's Town House, the headquarters of British colonial authority, up-and-coming young lawyer James Otis Jr. held the floor for more than 5 hours, speaking passionately in favor of freedom from these searches imposed through the Crown's recent writs of assistance or search warrants. Though he lost to the Crown's power on the writs, Otis's famous oration became the bedrock argument for individual citizens' rights that would hold sway throughout the course of the Revolution. The writs of assistance case put James at the forefront of the fledgling anti-British movement, Hacker said. But he also worked side by side with Samuel Adams for several years in opposing the colonial authority in newspapers, pamphlets, and eventually public demonstrations. The Otis family's Cape Cod home became a pre-revolution gathering place where community members met to discuss the emerging politics of the day, and Mercy, lucky for any woman of that time, became part of the intellectual fray. A budding writer and avid learner, she contributed to the politics of the emerging nation, composing popular pamphlets, dramas, and tracts that were published throughout the run-up and aftermath of the war. According to Hacker, Mercy shared her brother's values and with husband James Warren was an active participant and respected voice in Patriot inner circles. Though published anonymously because of her gender, Hacker said Mercy's writings helped sway popular opinion to the cause of actual independence. Her post-revolution pamphlet, Observations on the New Constitution, in 1789 was one of several published by members of the anti-federalist faction in favor of amending the newly ratified Constitution, which they felt had failed to address a number of individual rights that patriots had fought for. These collective anti-federalist publications provided the content of the now famous document whose first 10 amendments became the U.S. Bill of Rights in 1791. Mercy's role in shaping the content of these amendments was not discovered until the 20th century, when research uncovered documentation of her work. Later in the early 1800s, she completed a 3-volume history of the rise, progress, and termination of the American Revolution, the first American female historian to complete such a work. The Otis family's decline in political prominence was hastened by a serious head injury that James Jr. sustained in 1769 during a physical altercation with a political opponent. Otis's resulting concussion and mental decline greatly impacted his overall health, and he no longer remained at the center of local politics. Later in his life, Otis destroyed the bulk of his papers and writings, which made it more difficult to assemble the details of his extensive political legacy. Mercy's bond with her brother remained strong, however, and she used her writing schools to further causes that they both espoused. According to Cape Cod historian Nancy Shoemaker, it's important today not to forget what these patriots fought for and gave to our country by building its foundation. In the 1700s, Cape Cod was a good 2 days' journey on horseback. Despite the impeccable credentials of its prominent families, it remained a social backwater compared to the good old boys club of the Hutchinson-Hancock variety, and part of a rural area where the commercial interests of this outlier community were sometimes pitted against those of Boston's elites. In more current times, the Otis family legacy has acquired greater eminence, burnished especially as Mercy's many writings have resurfaced in the public eye. Today, bronze statues of the Otis siblings welcome visitors at the columned entrance to the Barnstable County Courthouse on Route 6A in Barnstable. Since 2002, a bronze marquette, inspired by the statue of Mercy Otis Warren, is presented each year to a Cape Cod woman who has demonstrated community leadership and contributions while embracing the ideals of patriotism. In Boston, an outsized oil and canvas mural depicting James Otis Jr. and his famous 1761 oration hangs in the Massachusetts State House. Hacker noted, while others are more commonly recognized as founders of the new nation, James Otis Jr. and Mercy Otis Warren were ordinary Cape Codders with strong family ties, the courage of their principles, and an outsized influence in the establishment of our republic. Keeping it local as we do here at the Ledger, we'll go to the Cape and Islands section. 22 condos and a restaurant are planned for Main and Ocean Street lot in Hyannis by Susan Vaughn. The large brick building at the corner of Main and Ocean Streets in Hyannis for 112 years has been demolished. And while some people are saddened over its destruction, a developer is excited about the property's prospects. This is going to be one of the best buildings on Main Street, Warren F. Reed said in a phone interview on Thursday, June 11th, as the demolition was wrapping up. Plans call for a 4-story, 46,000 square foot building that will be home to a restaurant and 22 two-bedroom condominiums. The building will have an elevator and parking on the main floor. The new building will be the last 4-story one on Main Street as the town has tightened downtown zoning. Reed is building the project for Marcelo Malagny of Bornbaum Associates, who's been its initial developer before backing out. The restaurant will be a 5-star quality one, Reed said. With so many restaurants in Hyannis, it would be pointless to have anything other than a 5-star one, he said. Malagny knows the restaurant business and he knows quality food, Reed said. A plan proposed last year called for having shops on the first floor. On June 5th, officials gave final approval to the demolition and the teardown began June 8th. The exterior of the new building will be similar to one with a more modern facade that Mullaney had proposed in March of 2025 to the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historical District Commission, Reed said. And Mullaney's name is spelled Mallegni. That project died when the commission voted 3-3 with one abstention. Officials were unhappy over its size and what they said was a lack of historical features. Mullaney made some tweaks to no avail. The commission later okayed demolishing the old building, once home to a variety of businesses, including an art gallery and a First National supermarket. After the Historic Commission's negative vote, Mullaney said he was done with the project, but Reed said they fine-tuned the design and have approvals from all the appropriate town and state agencies. Reed said he's been in the construction business for 40 years and has built many multi-million-dollar municipal buildings on the Cape for other companies and has worked with Mullaney previously. Reed said onlookers to the demolition objected to what he was doing, and some were recalling memories of the building as it was when they were children. At the Historic Commission meetings last year, architect Jack Kay and others cited the significance of the building location, calling it the Times Square of Hyannis, and said they would lose the dramatic impact of the corner building. Barnstable Town Councilor Betty Ludke recounted her visceral connection to this building when her grandmother shopped when it was a First National grocery store. Some commissioners also said they were torn between the history and sentiment of the building and the urgent need for housing. The former building also housed other restaurants, including Alberto's, a small performing arts venue, and a museum. The building debris cleanup will continue, and it'll take time to separate the materials and carry them to dump sites, Reed said, and a lot of infrastructure is needed for a new building foundation. He did not give a timeline or an estimate of the project cost. Large renderings of the building will be placed on the fence around the property on both Main Street and Ocean Street sides in about 2 weeks, Reed said. The sadness will dissipate, Reed predicted, when people see the new building. Also from the Cape and Islands section, new sailing program opens in Provincetown by Beth McDermott of the Provincetown Banner. The public's invited to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony at 9 a.m. on June 17th at the Macmillan Pier Dinghy Dock in Provincetown, according to a community announcement. Sailing for All Provincetown conducted research before incorporating in 2018 that revealed a largely underserved community of residents and visitors throughout the Outer Cape seeking greater access to the harbor. The study identified a strong interest in learning how to sail, not only among local residents but also among visitors, some who plan vacations based on the availability of sailing classes. Founded by a member of one of Provincetown's largest families, the mission was established to be affordable, accessible, and inclusive, according to the announcement. The organization is all volunteer, and it's funded by suggested but voluntary donations from members and others. Speakers at the event will include Pier Manager Jamie Demetriou, Harbor Master Pete Huynh, Town Manager Alex Morse, and Sailing for All Provincetown founder and president Robert Casper. Editorial note, this story was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence, AI. Journalists were involved in every step of the information gathering, its review, its editing, and its publishing process. And that's it for local news in the front. We'll move to the sports. It's tournament time. Lots of stuff going on in high school sports. And the headline in sports, Martha's Vineyard wins state title in thrilling comeback. High school girls tennis playoffs. MIAA Division III finals, Martha's Vineyard 3, Dover Sherborne 2. This is reported by Adam Kirkjian for the Cape Cod Times in Cambridge. Not here, not now, not again. The Martha's Vineyard girls tennis team found themselves down 2 matches and at the brink of losing to number 2 Dover Sherborne. This was deja vu against the same opponent and at the same venue where the Vineyarders lost the Division III state title last season. Collectively, the Vineyarders decided That was not going to happen this year. With a stirring comeback, number 1 Martha's Vineyard rallied past Dover Sherborne 3-2 in the MIAA Division III State Championship at MIT. It was high drama personified, and the Vineyarders performed like they were at Wimbledon. Now they have a trophy to show for it and a perfect 21-0 record to put on a banner in their gym. Charlotte Marchard lost its second singles 3-6, 1-6, and the second doubles team of Tessa Schultz and Bella Schilling fell 1-6, 5-7. But the Vineyarders were following along and knew all was not lost. Third singles player, freshman Josie Johns, won 6-3, 6-4. First doubles team, Leah Thompson and Zoe Treatman won 4-6, 6-1, 6-4. Thompson knew not to panic. "We knew it came down to us," Thompson said. "If we lost that last one, it would be done. But we knew that first singles Lena Dubin had won the first set, and Josie was going to win. That motivated me at least. We're not going to let the team down because they're doing well, so we have to perform well for them." With every other match finished, Dubin at first singles was against Leah Hills. Hills beat Dubin at this stage a year ago and had also defeated Dubin in the regular season this spring. They faced off with huge long rallies, with each player daring the other to make a mistake. At one point, with a 4-2 lead in the third set, Dubin hit the ball into the net. She didn't blow up and get frustrated, but smiled instead. She may not have known the match was hers at the point, but she wasn't sweating the result. She felt good about it. She finished with a 6-1, 4-6, 6-2 victory to seal the state title for the Vineyarders. It may have been a big comeback, but Dubin never felt the pressure. "I mean, once I got up a couple of games, I can definitely relax a bit more," Dubin said. "I can kind of believe in myself more. At the beginning of the third set, when it was really close, I was very nervous. When I got up ahead, I thought about how hard we worked and how much we want this." It was a sweet moment for the Vineyarders, who came so close to falling short, but simply would not be denied. Coach Bill Regali knows he has a special group. "I was checking in on the scores of the other points," Regali said. "Looked like we had a chance. Looked like we were competitive. Josie stepped up first. She's had an amazing year as a ninth grader. Then Leah and Zoe gave us a chance. And then Lena was amazing under pressure to win the match for us." It was a team effort for the Vineyarders. The Vineyarders celebrated on the court, then in the crowd, deliriously happy with their achievement. "Amazing," Thompson said when asked what it felt like to be a state champion. Dubin gave another "amazing" to that same question. The Vineyarders felt they had it in them the whole season. Beating Dover Sherborne in the regular season helped with that. "Our confidence," Dubin said, on what was different this year. "Having played them earlier in the season and coming out on top, we just felt like we had it in us and we could do it." Regali said the team made a leap from last year to this. It's one of the reasons he trusted in his players' ability. "We improved. Dover Sherborne were champions, and they improved. But we had more growth to go," Regali said. "I think when we beat them earlier in the season, our girls felt a bit more confident about how well we could do against good teams." The Vineyarders established their immortality in the win. There's not a single senior on the roster for the Vineyarders, but they can all call themselves state champions after that triumph. These players will go down in history for a 21-0 season. Dubin, Marchard, Johns, Thompson, Treatman, Schultz, Schilling, Francesca Carlos, Stella Cowan, Charlotte Kramer, Abigail Geary, Leela Kalalfa, Maple Martone, Autumn Wiggin, Talia Young, and Emmy Treatman. They etched their names in Martha's Vineyard and state lore. With so many young players and the entire lineup from Saturday coming back next year, is it too early to start looking forward to a possible repeat? For now, the Vineyarders are going to enjoy this win. They earned this one, a state title that was not going to be pulled from their grasp. Congratulations to the Martha's Vineyard Vineyarders. Moving on to the high school boys lacrosse playoffs. In the MIAA Division IV final, it was Cohasset 7, Nantucket 6. Cohasset, my hometown. Nantucket falls to Cohasset. Don't be mad, Nantucket. Don't send us any nasty emails. Alan Gunn wrote this. In Worcester, the Nantucket boys lacrosse team fell short of adding this program's second Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association, the MIAA, Division IV state championship in a 3-year span on Saturday against top-ranked Cohasset in a 7-6 defeat at Worcester State University. It was the second straight season that Nantucket's season ended with a defeat to Cohasset, having lost in the Final Four last spring by 9 goals. Saturday's loss was equal parts heartbreaking and gratifying that Nantucket had severely closed the gap toward matching Cohasset's level in just 12 months. It was heartbreaking in that Nantucket, which recovered from an early 2-goal deficit and a 2-goal halftime deficit, did everything it needed to tie the game at 6-6 with 48 seconds to play on a goal by Noah Stringer. Cohasset's Gus Green scored the winning goal 23 seconds later. We spotted them 3 goals that killed us ultimately, but our effort was there right to the end, Nantucket head coach Sam Alosi said. I don't fault them for that. Heck of a season. Nantucket showed all season long that it was a state championship contender. Cohasset played 5 games decided by 1 goal all season. Saturday was the first since May 5th, while Nantucket was the only Division IV team to provide a challenge. The best thing about Nantucket is they're relentless workers, and they stay true to what and who they are, Cohasset head coach Steve Rotondi said. They knew we were going to see each other at some point, and they're the team that we thought they were. They're hardworking and a tight-knit group. They do it really well. Opposing coaches saw what Nantucket saw from preseason. Nantucket was a group willing to come together, motivated by the chase of potentially beating Cohasset, and one built on something midfielder Aaron Hanlon always repeated that made them so dangerous. Chemistry, Hanlon said. We got a lot of the younger guys' experience last year, and then we just grew as a team and got tighter and tighter. The chemistry and experience, that's what was different today. That closeness nearly toppled Cohasset. The scoreboard will show that Nantucket lost, but it really just ran out of time in a matchup that was as close as it seemed. They're never out, even today, right down to the last play, Aloisi said. We had 7 seconds, and if we had gotten that ball, maybe we would have scored. Credit to Cohasset. It just didn't go our way today, but it was a great game. History has a funny way of repeating itself. Nantucket won the Division IV state championship 2 years ago and promptly graduated a large senior class. Nantucket nearly captured its second title in 3 seasons and will now have to deal with the departure of 12 seniors, 9 of which are starters. That group were all sophomores when the team were crowned champions. They didn't expect to make a run to the Final Four the next season, but they knew they had talent. And when that's combined with chemistry, good things usually follow. Hopefully the younger leaders can take it, right? Follow in our footsteps, keep pushing, practice hard every day. That's all you can ask for, Hanlon said. The remaining 4 juniors, the lone sophomore and the 3 freshmen, will have to find that same character within themselves because Nantucket boys lacrosse has shown that there is no challenge they can't overcome, no matter how depleted, no matter the deficit. It's what makes teams like division rivals Cohasset be able to be there at the end nearly every single year. Nantucket is building that DNA. It's great, Aloisi said. It, meaning motivation, perpetuates itself once you get going, much like it does for Falmouth and Sandwich on the Cape. We're just hoping we can get up and just keep it going. It's opening day for the Cape Cod Baseball League. Time for the CCBL Roundup by Courtney Jacobs. The first day of the 2026 Cape Cod Baseball League season kicked off on Saturday, June 13th, with all 10 teams in action. The defending champion Bourne Braves will be seeking their 4th championship in 5 seasons. The Braves would be the first team to win 4 titles in 5 years since the Falmouth Commodores did it in 1968 through 1971. Bourne will start its season at home against the Chatham Anglers. It was the Cotuit Kettleers 5, the Wareham Gatemen 0. The Kettleers had 6 batters that collected at least one hit. Josh Halsisak out of Mount St. Mary's earned the win, going 3 innings and allowing just one hit, no runs or walks, and striking out 4. Tyler Brashear out of Eckert saved it, striking out 5 Gatemen in 2 innings. The Gatemen, 0-1, were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position and left 12 batters on base. Caden McDonald from Florida and Dylan Dubovic out of Miami each collected 2 hits. Garrett Lambert out of Mercer College started and went 5 innings, giving up 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, and striking out 3. It was the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox. I'm so used to saying it, Dennis Yarmouth. It was the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox 8 and the Harwich Mariners 5. K. Joe Scobie out of South Carolina had only 1 hit, but it was a grand slam in the bottom of the 4th inning for the Red Sox, who are 1-0. John Beverly out of Georgia State had 2 hits and scored twice. Danny Nelson from Clemson had the win as he went 3 2/3 innings, allowed no hits, runs, 1 walk, and struck out 5. The Mariners, who are 0-1, were 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position, left 11 batters on base. Tyler Smolinski out of Kansas State homered in the 9th inning and finished with 2 hits, 2 runs, and 2 RBIs, while Quentin Coates of Cincinnati added 1 double. The Bourne Braves 5, the Chatham Anglers 1. The Braves, who were 1-0, started their title defense with a home victory over the Anglers, who were 0-1. Reese Bowie out of Wake Forest started on the mound as he gave up 1 hit, 1 run, and struck out 6 over 4 innings. Madden Clement out of Virginia Tech picked up the win as he pitched 2 innings, allowed no runs or walks, 1 hit, and struck out 4. Mark Quattrani of Notre Dame homered in the bottom of the 3rd innings. Andrew Costello from Wake Forest had 2 hits with 1 run, and Garrett Michelle out of Arizona State added 1 double for Bourne. Connor Schaus of Texas Tech and Gabe Fraser of Florida State were the only batters that had 1 hit for Chatham. It was the Brewster Whitecaps 9, Hyannis Harbor Hawks 7. The Whitecaps are 1-0 and the Harbor Hawks are 0-1. They were tied at 7 after 8 innings. Will Moore from Indiana singled and brought home Frankie Carney out of UC Irvine for the winning run for Brewster. Jamie Laskowski out of William & Mary and Jacob Lee from Virginia Commonwealth both went yard in the 4th inning. Laskowski finished 3 for 5 with 2 runs, 2 RBI, while Lee had 2 RBIs and 1 run. Jake Lambden from Duke recorded 2 hits with 2 runs scored. Finbar O'Brien picked up the win on the mound over 2 innings as he allowed no runs or hits, 1 walk, and struck out 3. Charlie Bates from Stanford and Caden Miller from Texas Antonio both homered in the 6th inning. Miller added a double and had 2 RBIs. It was the Falmouth Commodores 11 and the Orleans Firebirds 4. The Commodores, who are 1-0, scored the most runs on opening night as they beat the Firebirds, who are 0-1. Ty Kaunis of Maryland, Riley Jackson of Houston, and John Martinez of Florida Atlantic each collected 2 hits at the plate for Falmouth. Kaunis scored 3 times, while Jackson and Gavin Gregor of Bryant each scored twice. Martinez and J.J. Kennett from Baylor had 2 RBIs each. Zach Jansen of Virginia had 2 hits, while 5 players collected 1 hit each at the plate for Orleans. We're just a few minutes past the midway portion in our reading of the Cape Cod Times, and regular listeners, I'm sure, are aware it's at this stage that we move to a different kind of local news, which is the obituaries and death notices and memorials that are posted in that day's Times. And in the Cape Cod Times of June 15th, a Monday of 2026, there are 2 obituaries. The first is of John Ritter Woodford of East Orleans. John, known as Woody Ritter Woodford of East Orleans, Massachusetts, died June 4th, 2026, at the age of 78 in New York City. He was born in 1948 in New York City. He was a proud member of the class of '66 at Old Saybrook, Connecticut High School, and then served in the U.S. Coast Guard Reserve. Mr. Woodford, thank you for your service. A longtime resident of Guilford, Connecticut, he had a 45-year career in information technology services at Yale University. After retiring, he returned to school to further his own education, earning a BA in English from Connecticut College. For many years, he savored visits to his dad's camp that was off the grid in down east Maine. He loved hiking in the White Mountains, especially with his daughter Beth, and enjoyed sailing his Lightning and Erickson on Long Island Sound. More recently, he spent his days tending to the garden he loved and discussing current events with his treasured Sparrow's coffee clatch. He's survived by his wife of 55 years, Patricia Thatcher Woodford, and many family and friends. In lieu of flowers, please consider a donation to VNS Health Hospice Care in New York City, the National Coast Guard Museum, or Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. The other obituary in today's Cape Cod Times is of Joseph Carlson of Sandwich, who at the age of 81 passed away on May 10th of 2026. Joseph was born June 30th, 1944 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Joseph Tato Joe Carlson was the kind of man whose presence alone brought peace. To know him was to know comfort, laughter, adventure, and unconditional love. His love for his family was endless, and his spirit will continue to guide and surround them every day. Joseph served in the United States Air Force. Mr. Carlson, thank you for your service, reflecting a steady sense of duty and a willingness to serve something larger than himself. He graduated from Cape Cod Community College and Suffolk University. That same dedication carried into his professional life as a tax accountant, where he was known for his care, integrity, and straightforward honesty at Carlson and Associates in Sandwich and Cape Cod Bank and Trust Company. Joe is survived by many family and friends. Please join us in celebrating the life of Joe. A funeral service will be held Thursday, June 25th at 11 a.m. at Corpus Christi, 324 Quaker Meeting House Road in East Sandwich. The interment will follow at approximately 12:45 p.m. at the Massachusetts National Cemetery on Connery Ave in Buzzards Bay. Following the burial, we invite you to gather at the Daniel Webster Inn and Spa at 149 Main Street in Sandwich for eulogies and a toast in his honor. In lieu of flowers, any donations may be made in Joe's memory to the Sandwich-born Lions Club, P.O. Box 197, Sandwich, Mass., or to Scouting America's Cape Cod and Islands Council Number 224, 247 Willow Street in Yarmouthport, Massachusetts, 02675. And that concludes the obituaries and death notices that are listed in today's Cape Cod Times, dated Monday, June 15th of 2026. We've completed the local news that's included in today's edition. We'll now move on to the national news. You might have heard some of this already in our earlier readings, but many of these may be the only times you hear our readings of the national stories. And the headline on the Cape Cod Times front page, Iran questions United States commitment to peace. This is reported by Mohammed Al-Gabali, El-Weli, and Phil Stewart of Reuters in Dubai. Iran's top negotiator questioned the United States' commitment to peace efforts after Israel carried out new attacks on Lebanon, dimming prospects of Tehran and Washington signing a framework agreement on June 14th on ending their war. President Donald Trump and mediator Pakistan said on June 13th that they expected the deal would be signed the next day. But Tehran cast doubt over the timing, and hardline protesters in Iran voiced opposition. Qatari negotiators flew to Tehran on the morning of June 14th as part of an effort to finalize the agreement, a source with knowledge of the situation told Reuters. but Iranian negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said Israel's June 14th attack on the southern suburbs of Beirut, which Israel said targeted Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants, showed the U.S. lacked the will or ability to fulfill its commitments. If you lack the will and ability to fulfill your commitments, speaking of continuing the path is not possible, he wrote on X, in an apparent reference to peace moves. Mohammad Jafar Asadi, deputy commander of Iran's top joint military command, was quoted by state media as saying Israeli crimes, quote-unquote, in Beirut's southern suburbs would not go unanswered. The U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, launched February 28th, has stoked conflict between Israel and Iran-aligned Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Israel has said it's not party to the planned U.S.-Iran deal. The Israeli military said on June 14th that Hezbollah had launched 3 projectiles toward communities in northern Israel in violation of a ceasefire in Lebanon. Israel then fired at what it called Hezbollah targets in the Dahiyeh neighborhood of Beirut in an attack that Lebanon's civil defense had killed 3 people. Fox News quoted an unidentified diplomat involved in the talks as saying the Israeli strikes were complicating efforts to finalize the U.S.-Iran deal and describing them as an attempt to sabotage those efforts. Israel did not immediately respond to that assertion. Israel has said it will retain freedom of operations in Lebanon, while Tehran has made a full ceasefire there an important component of its demands. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also clashed with Trump over U.S. demands that Israel curb military action in Lebanon to allow Washington to reach a deal with Tehran. Thousands of people have been killed, mostly in Iran and Lebanon, since the U.S. and Israel began strikes on Iran. Iran has struck Israel and Persian Gulf states that host U.S. bases and has effectively blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for global oil supplies. The blockade has pushed up global energy prices, while the U.S. Navy has blocked Iranian ports. Trump posted on June 13th that the deal with Iran was scheduled to be signed the following day, his 80th birthday, yesterday. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said Islamabad was preparing for an electronic signing to be followed by technical-level talks in the coming week. But Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai, speaking before Trump's post, was quoted by state media as saying it would not be on June 14th, although it could happen in the coming days. Iran's Fars news agency, citing an informed source, said on June 14th that Tehran had not yet made a final decision on the framework agreement, with reviews of its political, legal, and technical aspects ongoing at expert and decision-making levels. A senior Iranian official told Reuters that under the terms of the draft deal, the U.S. would agree to release $25 billion of frozen Iranian assets, while Tehran would agree not to produce or acquire nuclear weapons. Trump wrote on Truth Social that after a framework deal is signed, the Strait of Hormuz would immediately be, quote-unquote, open to all. Once the strait reopens, the United States would lift its naval blockade, sources on all sides said. Negotiations over Iran's nuclear program would take place afterward. While U.S. and Israeli bombing has heavily degraded Iran's military-industrial base and damaged its military, experts say the war has entrenched the dominance of Iran's hardline Revolutionary Guard Corps. When the U.S. and Israel launched the war, Trump called on Iranians to rise up and take over state institutions. Even as the U.S. and Iran appeared to be moving toward an agreement over the past few days, clashes have continued. At pro-government rallies across Iran late June 13th, residents and news agencies reported that hardliners opposed to the framework agreement loudly voiced their dissatisfaction. Draft terms of the agreement, described to Reuters by multiple sources, indicate the U.S. would begin releasing frozen Iranian assets and waive sanctions on its oil exports in return for Iran opening the strait. Iran's nuclear program would be addressed during a 60-day period of talks. A senior Iranian official told Reuters on June 14th that Iran agreed to maintain the nuclear status quo, including no uranium enrichment or expansion of nuclear facilities until a final deal was reached. A U.S. official said the agreement would ultimately lead to the dismantling of Iran's nuclear program, with its stockpile of highly enriched uranium to be destroyed and removed. The senior Iranian official said the draft deal would allow Iran, which denies that it's seeking a nuclear bomb, to dilute its enriched uranium inside the country. Moving inside the paper, the headline reads, "Latest batch of UFO files are released, but no bombshells are seen in these Pentagon documents," by Josh Mayer of USA Today in Washington. They are out there. The latest batch of newly declassified Pentagon documents about potential alien contact, that is. On June 12th, the same day a new Steven Spielberg sci-fi blockbuster on alien visitors came out, the Trump administration released a third tranche of previously top-secret UFO files from military and civilian intelligence agencies. The new documents, photos, drawings, and videos add to the government's rapidly expanding archive of unexplained sightings, known in official parlance as UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. The release marked the latest chapter of a resurgent public interest in the topic. As of this reporting, there were no bombshells based on a USA Today review of the documents and early social postings from other media and legions of UFO-ologists, but the files do include documentation, as in previous releases, of some sightings and other observations that investigators were unable to explain, leaving the true details of the phenomena unresolved. The declassified materials uploaded to the Pentagon's website offered no immediate evidence of alien visitors to Earth, but they did contain some reports and exchanges dating back to the 1950s about the potential for life beyond our own floating blue sphere. In one case, CIA officials hid their spy agency affiliation from a scientist, Dr. Leon Davidson. Davidson was a chemical engineer who worked on the Manhattan Project and at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and studied and collected material on UFOs from 1949 into the 60s, according to archival materials at Columbia University. The university houses the Leon Davidson Flying Saucer Collection in its rare book and manuscript library, its website says. At one point, according to the newly released documents, Davidson was seeking answers about an alleged space message and its transmitter. "We have contacted Dr. Davidson by telephone advising him that we cannot resolve his problem concerning the space message and its transmitter because records on the matter have been destroyed by the evaluating agency," RPB Lohman wrote in a confidential, quote-unquote, letter to the CIA's Chief Contact Division and others on January 9th of 1958. Davidson accepted this statement with a comment that he had been told this before and said he was trying to water down his pending article about Air Force handling of space sightings enough for it to get approved by a Pentagon security review team. "We appreciate that there have been many cooks in the kitchen on this dish and that as a result, the extraordinarily non-committal and evasive answer we were instructed to give Davidson was perhaps the only one possible if we were to avoid crossing up previous statements of our own and other involved agencies to this man," Lohman wrote. But the answer was hardly fair to Davidson and one not likely to be fully accepted by him. Lohman also noted that two agency officials dealing with Davidson tried to conceal their CIA identity from him, but that they were reasonably sure that he knew very well with whom he was dealing. In signing off, Lohman wrote, "We are sure more will be heard from Davidson." More recent reports in the new files mention glowing red and yellow spheres, or orbs, seen by people in the northeastern and western United States. One FBI 302 field report describes a February 26th of 2026 interview FBI agents conducted with two people who reported seeing intense and unexplained lights hovering in their backyards at about 9:15 p.m. Identities, locations, and date of the sightings were redacted. One person noticed an intense bright light hovering below the tree line in the middle of their backyard, long enough for them to get their phone and take a video. Someone else, apparently at the same residence, looked at a security camera and saw the second person outside staring at their backyard. And that second person described the light as a red sphere that was about 1 meter in diameter that was brilliant and beautiful. The witness had never seen anything that color of red before. Inside the red sphere, one of the witnesses told the FBI, was what looked like a white plasma sun, about the size of a basketball. As they continued to watch, a second orb appeared, hovering over the first one, and the two moved westward together and traveled out of sight. The orbs were silent. They moved in a smooth motion. They moved in tandem as if they were flying in formation or were tethered together, the witnesses told the FBI, according to the document. The witnesses reported seeing several white orbs flying over the house a few weeks later at a much higher altitude, the FBI report said. Other reports cited similar sightings of orbs, including from several federal law enforcement special agents who said they observed unidentified UAPs in the western United States over 2 days in October of 2023. One of them told the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office that they saw a bright ball of light, like a shooting star, beam across and over a hillside high above the ground. The colors of the light went from amber to orange, slightly yellow, and white, in that order, the witness said, according to the Pentagon report. No other lights were seen, nor did I hear any mechanical buzzing or anything like an aircraft at this time, and kept driving. After about 10 minutes, the witness saw with my naked eye multiple singular bright orange lights or orbs of various brightness, size, and distance. Soon thereafter, I saw 9 lights that formed a horizontal line just above a ridge line, the federal agent said. In all, the agent said, the observations occurred within a 2 to 3 hour span, nonstop. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell posted on X that the files were released as part of President Donald Trump's Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, PURSUE. Parnell said there had been an unprecedented level of interest in both this topic and the release of the files, which are housed at war.gov/UFO so the public and legions of UFO researchers can study them. The site has received more than 1.7 billion hits worldwide since its May 8th launch. The Pentagon and partner agencies are actively working on the next release of UAP files, Parnell said, and those agencies include the White House, various U.S. intelligence agencies, the FBI, the Department of Energy, and NASA. Our next headline, suits claim poisoning by baby food brands. Data finds evidence of toxic heavy metals, by Mary Walrath Holdridge of USA Today. Parents are taking major baby food makers to task, accusing them of systemic poisoning that left their children disabled. More than 200 lawsuits have been filed against popular baby food brands since the beginning of 2026. In June alone, roughly 40 suits were filed by the 10th of the month, according to court records that were reviewed by USA Today, all based on similar allegations. The brands, quote-unquote, knowingly exposing children to heavy metals is the crux of the complaints, which by and large argue that defendants sold these baby foods knowing that toxic heavy metals, when consumed by babies, are known to cause brain damage and neurodevelopmental harm, as outlined in a June 9th filing on behalf of one Florida mother, Jennifer Garcia. Baby food should be safe. It should not be contaminated with toxic heavy metals, period. This action aims to stop defendants from poisoning infants with contaminated baby food, said the filing, which alleged that Garcia's 6-year-old child had suffered a debilitating brain injury as a result of eating the contaminated food as an infant. Most of the recent complaints allege similar injuries, including autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The initial complaints don't provide direct evidence of these claims, such as medical testing, a healthcare professional's opinion, product-specific testing, or evidence that other potential causes were ruled out, but they note that investigations have not been finished. The companies named include Beechnut Nutrition Company, Gerber Products Company, Hain Celestial Group, Nurture, Plum Organics, the Campbell's Company, Sprout Foods, Neptune Wellness Solutions, and Walmart. They allege contamination across nearly every major baby food category, including cereals, purees, meals, snacks, and teething products, especially those containing rice flour and root vegetables. USA Today reached out for comment from all mentioned brands on June 11th. Campbell's said it does not comment on pending litigation, but noted that it sold Plum Organics to Sun-Maid growers in 2021. The heavy metals in question, inorganic arsenic, lead, cadmium, and mercury, have been found to negatively affect the development of children, causing untreatable and frequently permanent brain damage, even with limited exposure, according to the FDA and World Health Organization. Reduced IQ, developmental and learning disabilities, and behavioral disturbances such as antisocial behavior are among the most cited long-term impacts. However, no definitive studies have established a causal link between heavy metals consumption and autism. While some studies show higher levels of heavy metals in children with autism, researchers haven't proven that these exposures cause the condition, and results vary greatly. The evidence is stronger for ADHD and lead, but is still not definitive in proving direct causation. Current scientific consensus doesn't offer one specific cause for autism or ADHD, instead, generally believing them to be multifactorial conditions that involve both genetics and environment. This is one of the likely reasons that limits on heavy metals in baby food don't already exist, said food safety attorney Bill Marler. He's not involved in any of the mentioned suits. The FDA did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A congressional inquiry in 2021 found that tested commercial baby foods were tainted with significant levels of toxic heavy metals of 4 types from all reviewed brands, which include Beechnut, Hain, Gerber, Walmart, Sprout, Campbell, and Nurture. Even small amounts of the above-listed heavy metals are considered dangerous to children. These amounts are generally measured in parts per billion, or ppb. More important to the lawsuits, the inquiry found internal correspondence that showed the companies were aware of the presence of these metals, and in some cases opted to use high arsenic and high lead ingredients that violated their own internal standards. Among the data cited, more than 25% of the tested baby food sold by Nurture exceeded 100 parts per billion inorganic arsenic, while Beechnut used ingredients in its baby foods with as much as 913.4 parts per billion of arsenic and 886.9 parts per billion of lead. Only one company, Nurture, even tested for mercury, which clocked in at 10 parts per billion. Because no FDA regulations for heavy metals in baby food existed, the FDA maximum for bottled water was used as a measure: 10 parts per billion inorganic arsenic, 5 parts per billion lead, and 5 parts per billion cadmium. The EPA cap for mercury in drinking water is 2 parts per billion. The test results of baby foods and their ingredients eclipse those levels, including results up to 91 times the arsenic level, up to 177 times the lead level, up to 69 times the cadmium level, and up to 5 times the mercury level, the 2021 report said. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, Monday, June 15th of 2026. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.